Welcome to Unit 4, Lecture 4, the process of cellular respiration. Our learning objectives: identify what happens during glycolysis, identify what happens during the Krebs cycle, explain how the electron transport chain uses high-energy electrons from glycolysis and the Krebs cycle, calculate how much ATP cellular respiration generates. This is going to be an overview of cellular respiration. I'm intentionally trying to not make it too complicated. Okay, so you may feel like there's some things or some gaps in what I'm telling you or some gaps in your information, and that's fine, because otherwise if we start going and getting really detailed about some of these chemical reactions, they are going to be super complicated that you don't need to worry about. You just want basically the overview. Cellular respiration is how cells, both plant and animal, take energy from food, usually in the form of glucose, and turn it into ATP for use in cellular work. So remember, everything that your body is doing is work. Everything that's going on with you is work. Whether you're clicking a pen, tapping a toe, walking, working out, playing a sport, everything is work. And you need ATP to make that happen. So cellular respiration does that for you. It happens in the presence of oxygen, and there are three main steps that we're going to talk about: glycolysis, the Krebs cycle, and the electron transport chain. The first step is glycolysis. So glycolysis is this first step that actually happens in the cytoplasm, and this is where we actually break glucose apart into two molecules of pyruvic acid. Those two molecules of pyruvic acid is going to be really important for the next step in the Krebs cycle. Okay, but right now, the really big important step is that we actually, right now for glycolysis, that first step happens out in the cytoplasm and breaks glucose apart. Okay, so you can see it breaks that glucose into two molecules of pyruvic acid. Glucose, or glycolysis, is, and part of that process, it actually uses some ATP, okay, all right, to make this happen. So some of the ATP goes in to make this reaction happen, but out of it comes ATP and NADH. Now NADH is basically the same thing as NADPH. Okay? So it's an electron carrier. That's the book bag. All right? So it's picking up energy, okay, to then go be used later. So if you remember from the last lecture in photosynthesis, NADPH picked up energy in the light-dependent reactions and shuttled it to the light-independent reactions. Here, the NADH is actually going to shuttle that energy to the last step, the electron transport chain. So it's basically doing the same job. We will pretend, it doesn't, but we're going to pretend that the P stands for photosynthesis. So NADPH is used during photosynthesis, NADH is used during cellular respiration. It's not exact, that's not what the P means at all, but we're going to pretend that it does. Okay, so you can see, all right, that pyruvic acid is then going to go into the next step, into the Krebs cycle. Okay, and that NADH is going off the electron transport chain. So in the pyruvic acid, or in the Krebs cycle, pyruvic acid is then going to be broken down into carbon dioxide. And this is where, okay, so we're in the second step. So this is the second step. Okay. We have now gone into the mitochondria. Okay, we've gone into the mitochondria, and this is where we're getting the carbon dioxide, so the stuff that you're going to end up exhaling. All right, so we make that carbon dioxide, and in that process, there's a lot of reactions that happen in here. We're not going to focus on them at all. Okay, but what's happening here is that pyruvic acid, okay, is actually going to be made, it's going to be used, it releases carbon dioxide, but then it also releases energy. And then the last step is the electron transport chain. So we also get some NADH from the Krebs cycle that goes into the electron transport chain. So this is the third step. So that NADH that's been made during the Krebs cycle and the NADH that was made during glycolysis is also going to go into the electron transport chain. This is where the majority of the work happens. Okay, the NADH in the from the first two steps gets shuttled through this electron transport chain. Notice we are still in the mitochondria. In the mitochondria. Okay. And what happens is we end up getting, this is where the bulk of our ATP is made, and I have a picture of that on the next slide. Okay, but what's happening is that NADH, it's brought all of that energy to the electron transport chain, and then it's releasing it to make the ATP. So we've got three steps, 1, 2, 3. Okay, glycolysis, remember this happens in the cytoplasm, and then these two happen in the mitochondria. So in glycolysis, we only get 2 ATPs total. Right? In the Krebs cycle, we get 2 ATPs plus the CO2 that we exhale. Okay? And then in the electron transport chain, this is where the bulk of our ATP is made. Okay? And we also get water that we'll use for other chemical reactions, or we'll excrete it. We'll go to the bathroom. Okay. All right. So our total ATP count is anywhere in the range from 30 to 42 per molecule of glucose that goes in. So for every one molecule of glucose, one molecule of glucose, we can get 30 to 40 ATPs. Remember, glucose is like a $50 bill. You can't use the $50 bill at the vending machine. Okay, you got to break it down. So what happens is the glucose, the $50 bill of the glucose, is actually broken down into dollars, individual dollar bills, to make the ATP. And so what happens is then we can use those to do reactions easier, better. We can make things happen in the cell, and that's what we need that for. All right, I will talk to you later. Bye.